it's Quinn. Welcome to my vlog. So today we're going to be making gluten-free peanut butter cookies. This recipe only has 3 ingredients and it's super easy to make. I originally discovered it when I was looking for Passover-friendly recipes. And because there's no flour or any sort of grain, this recipe is Passover-friendly as long as you can eat legumes. So it just depends on what sect of Judaism you're in. And because it is a gluten-free recipe, I did go ahead and pre-wash all of my dishes in advance because I don't live in a gluten-free household, so I want to make sure that there's no cross-contamination from just previous cooking or baking, or literally just throwing like a loaf of bread inside a bowl or something. So yeah, I make sure that all my mixing bowls and baking sheets are pre-washed very thoroughly before even starting to record my intro. And now, in terms of ingredients, all you need is 1 cup of peanut butter, 1 cup of sugar, and 1 egg. So let's get started. To get started, you want to go ahead and preheat the oven for 350 degrees. So while our oven is preheating, we're going to go ahead and make our dough. So to start, add in 1 cup of sugar. Then you'll want to put in 1 cup of peanut butter. And then finally, crack in your single egg. Once all of your ingredients are in your mixing bowl, you're going to want to mix them all together. I prefer to use a fork for this just because peanut butter is going to get ridiculously hot in a whisk. And so it's a lot easier to thoroughly integrate everything when you use a fork. And definitely stirring because of the thickness of the peanut butter is a bit of an arm workout, but it's worth it in the end. And you can tell that your dough is thoroughly mixed when you have this sort of crystallized texture to your peanut butter, so it shouldn't be smooth anymore. Additionally, you don't want to see any clumps of sugar or any eggy, liquid, regardless of if that's yolk or whites. And once you're happy with your dough mixture, then you can go ahead and start scooping it into balls to bake. So prior to actually putting any balls of dough on my cookie sheet, I'm going to go ahead and add some vegetable oil just to keep those cookies from sticking once they've baked. So I'm just pouring a little bit of vegetable oil on a paper towel and greasing my tray that way. And in terms of actually making the cookies, I go ahead and use my hands. So I'll take about a forkful of dough and then roll it into a ball and put those balls of dough on the tray. I do make sure that I very thoroughly wash my hands before ever touching the dough for sanitation purposes. And that's a really important aspect if you're ever baking for people who aren't yourself. And because these don't have any flour or any sort of ingredient that rises, it is okay to place them kind of close together because they're not going to expand into each other. And in terms of sizing, there's not a correct size for these. The technical instructions is just a spoonful, like a tablespoonful. So I kind of just eye that because I've been making this recipe for years, but the really important thing is to make sure that they're all about the same size. And so once they're all about the same size and spaced out on a tray, you can go ahead and pop them in the oven. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the cookies in the oven, and they'll need to bake for 6 to 8 minutes. So once the timer has gone off, we wanna go ahead and check if they're done or not. So we're gonna go ahead and pull them from the oven, and just look at the bottom of one of them to see if it's browned. And if it hasn't, and they really haven't yet, then you want to give them a couple of minutes. So like I checked at the 6-minute mark, I'm going to give them 2 more minutes. All right, it's been 2 minutes. I'm going to try again. So basically, what's happening right now is the dough is coming off, but the base is still staying, so it's actually separating. But I can tell by that the bottom of the cookie that we're looking for to be brown hasn't really firmed up yet, so it needs a couple more minutes. And the thing is, cooking time does vary depending on your oven and where you are, and also just the positioning of the cookie tray in the oven, how close it is to that heat source. All right, so it's been 10 minutes, so I know they're done. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them out. Because of the nature of the recipe, the fact that there is no sort of flour or solidifying agent, you're going to want to let the cookies actually cool on the oven rack so they kind of solidify. If you were to try and immediately move them over to a cooling rack, you're going to just get goop. And so you got to let them cool so they can firm up a little before you actually move them off of the oven tray. So after about 10 minutes, at which point your baking sheet might still be warm, but it's not so hot that it'll burn you, you can go ahead and transfer your cookies from the baking sheet onto a plate or a cooling sheet or a cooling rack. Today I'm going to be using a plate because I forgot my cooling racks. And you're just going to scoop the cookies off and move them over so that they can move without being cooked any further. And they should come off pretty easily at this point now that they've solidified. You might not even need a spatula to scoop them off at all. As opposed to, if you remember in the oven, how they were actually coming free of the base, that's because they were still so soft that they would rather break than stay together. So it's a good sign if they come off very easily as opposed to breaking apart. And you do want to see some sort of like golden brown on the bottom. Similar to this, these probably could have been pulled out about 30 seconds earlier, but they're not quite burnt, so that's okay. And here we have it, gluten-free peanut butter cookies. So I hope you try the recipe out, and thanks for watching.